Hi, my name is Tanya Turner. I'm a dietitian at the MUSC Weight Management Center, and I'm going to be doing your grocery shopping store tips presentation for you today. So just to get started, I wanted to go over some just general tips that we normally talk about when talking to patients who are either looking at losing or maintaining or trying to change their eating habits for a little bit healthier choices. Some of the big things we really want to encourage is definitely when you're going to the grocery store, just being aware of the location that you're headed to. Obviously, there's lots of great choices, but also there's lots of things that you can get at the grocery store that are less than ideal. And so I've had a patient, as well as another dietitian one time, mention that she had heard that, you can definitely say no in the grocery store by walking away from it one time, but the second you bring it into your home, you then have to repeatedly tell yourself, no, I don't want that, or portion it out appropriately every single time. So definitely being mindful when you go to the store, having a list in hand, sticking to it, going to the store when you have enough time to grocery shop, as well as when you're not hungry, so you're not buying some of those impulse items that we've all done before when we go to the store right after work, starving. And then other things are just to really be mindful of being aware of what you're getting when you're at the store and what you're purchasing. And one way to do that is just to read labels as well as to just be mindful of where you're shopping throughout the day or throughout the store. And so this is just a visual reminder of what a grocery store is laid out like. But the big thing is that the perimeter, which is basically going to be your fruits, your meats, your milks, and your bread, these are all the things that you're going to want to focus on at least 50 to 75% of the time. There's definitely items where you can get out of the aisles that are helpful. It's just a matter of really being more mindful of what's in the products as well as how you choose them. So the label is a really great way to be able to look at your food choices and be able to determine, is it a good choice? Is there a better choice? There's two labels on here, and I would encourage you to watch the Imagine You label reading lesson that we have as well. The current label as well as the new label, but the big things we like to really focus on is the calories, the serving size, the types of fats, as well as the content of your carbohydrates in regards to added sugars and fiber content. And so all of those things I'll touch base a little bit with, as well as your sodium. But I would again encourage you to really take a look at your labels when you're in the store, and also take a look at the Imagine You label reading lesson as well. So fruits and vegetables, there's nothing you can do wrong in the fruit and vegetable section other than get too few of them. And so the big thing is to really just load up your vegetables with as many fruits and vegetables as you possibly can. If you're trying to do local, fresh, in season, those are going to be the ones that are probably the best tasting, the highest nutritional value. But if you can't always do that, there's always frozen, which is a great choice, especially if maybe you're cooking for one or not everybody likes the same thing and you don't want to throw a bunch of your produce away. Frozen is a great choice. It also is a great choice because it's been picked at quality peak time. Canned is another option for both fruits and vegetables. The big thing there is your sodium content, and so trying to opt for lower sodium versions and lower added sugar or fruits that are packed in their own juices. For your meats, poultry, and fish, which is usually the next section in your grocery store, the big thing here is watching portion sizes and just being mindful that even in a grocery store, portion sizes can be a little bit out of hand. And so sometimes a 2-pack of chicken breasts, instead of just being 2 servings, can actually be 4. The other thing to be really mindful of is that you're getting a lean choice of protein. And so the big thing there for your poultry, whether it's chicken or turkey, is to focus on white or dark meat as long as it's skinless, and that's going to remove a lot of that saturated fat content from the product, which is going to in turn lower the calories. If you're choosing beef or pork, especially if it's ground, going for a lean or an extra lean version. And then also looking for your cuts of red meat and pork that are going to be leaner. So maybe you can actually remove some of the fat from the outer edges of it, reducing the amount of marbling that's found in your higher fat red meats. And then with your seafood, just aiming to get that at least 2 to 3 times per week. And if you can, opting for ones that are going to be frozen or fresh, but again, wild caught versus something that has been farm raised. And that's just going to mean it's going to have a higher nutritional value. This is just some key messages, some choice, some things to choose versus go easy on. And so a lot of what I just talked about in regards to leaner cuts of meats, ground meats, making sure that you're getting things that are unbreaded, really trying to be mindful too of avoiding these things or using them less frequently. So especially things like your more processed meats like bacons and sausages, deli meats, things that are flash fried or frozen, anything that's been breaded. Those are things that you really want to try to use less frequently. Your dairy section is another great section, great source of protein, great way to get some calcium as well as some vitamin D as well. The big thing here is that dairy products are an animal product, which in turn means they have a saturated fat content. And so the higher fat milk product that you have, the higher saturated fat as well as the higher calories that it has. And so the big recommendation is to go lower in percentage. And so if you're doing a whole milk, drop to a 2. If you're doing a 2, drop to a 1. If you're doing a 1, drop to a skim. Some people really prefer the skim or the 1%, and that's absolutely fine. If you're doing a milk alternative, whether it's soy or almond or cashew, just making sure that it's a light, it doesn't have those added sugars. If it's anything other than soy, you want to make sure too that it's got some protein. And so now they make a lot of the products that have some added pea-based protein to them. It's a great way to get that enhanced protein that's going to help to keep you full without the dairy component, if that's something you have an intolerance or a preference to staying away from. Yogurts in general are really great as well, good mid-afternoon snacks. Greeks are probably the best in regards to the fact that they have more protein. But the big thing with yogurts is the added sugars. And so just really reading the ingredients, looking for things that have less sugar in them. And the best way to do that right now, until the added sugars goes officially onto all labels, is to read the ingredients. Using even just like a plain yogurt and adding your own frozen or fresh berries to it can be a great alternative. Eggs themselves, the big thing is if you can opt for medium to large eggs, trying to avoid the jumbo, knowing that AHA, which is the American Heart Association, no longer recommends a limit of 3 eggs per week, and so you can definitely go over that, but just follow safety precautions with your eggs, making sure as well that, again, everything in moderation. Cheese is a product that a lot of our patients come in and say that they really try to be mindful of when they're purchasing. Cheese is something that can definitely be, again, higher in sodium, higher in fat content, and so just trying to do a lower fat version or a part skim version. It doesn't have to be fat-free, but if you're doing 2% cottage cheese or part skim mozzarella or string cheese or a Laughing Cow or a Baby Kit Bell, I personally like doing portion control with my cheeses, and so the one way that I do that is getting like the thin sliced Sargentos, which is a little bit easier. You can still feel like you're getting something, but because it's sliced so thinly, you get to kind of feel like you're splurging on your portion of it. Other protein sources, just bearing in mind that plant-based proteins are a great protein source for us, and so using those as much as you can. Beans and legumes are a great source of fiber. 1/4 of a cup can be substituted for 1 ounce of meat. Nuts and nut spreads are also a great choice, and so that one big thing there is that they're a good source of monounsaturated fats, but the big thing is there's also looking at no added sugars, so trying to do more of your natural peanut butters, almond butters versus ones that have been reduced in fat or has anything added into them. And then also keeping in mind there's a lot of great tofu and soy products out there. So if you've tried in the past maybe the burgers or the crumbles and you didn't like them, definitely give them a try again. There's lots of different varieties on the market. It can be a great alternative, a good way again to get a meat-based product or meat-like product without the saturated fat content. Your fats and your oils in general, the big thing is to limit them as much as you can. And so there's good fats and not so good fats. The ones we want to limit are saturated fats, which are, again, are animal-based fats, things that are solid at room temperature like butters. Your stick margarines are things that have the trans fat in them, and you really want to try to limit those as much as you can. Your softer spreads, like some of your vegetable oil spreads, again, it's better than maybe a stick of butter or margarine. However, it still has fats in them, and so just really being mindful of your portions. The best thing is probably your oils themselves, and so these are things like your olive oil, canola oil, sunflower, safflower, things like that. But the big thing also is just to be mindful again of portions. A teaspoon of oil is the same calories as a teaspoon of fat, even if it is olive oil. So just being mindful that you watch your overall total intake regardless of if it's good or bad fat. You can use alternatives for cooking sprays if you're not wanting to use those, like oil diffusers, salad dressings, condiments, mayonnaises. The big thing is to really just watch how much fat, so trying to opt for more vinaigrette-based versus creamy. If you're doing a mayonnaise, trying to maybe do the olive oil, which is a little bit lower saturated fat content. They even make avocado mayonnaises at this point. So really just kind of looking and familiarizing yourself with some different products that are out there at the grocery store. And by all means, reaching out to the Weight Management Center or our dietitian and asking too is always a great way to get some of those questions answered. Your grains have a wonderful place in our diet, but the key is that you want to make sure that they're whole grains versus anything that's been enriched or fortified. And the best way to determine that is by reading the ingredients as well as checking that there's at least 3 grams of fiber per serving. Really good thing to keep in mind also is that starches are everywhere. So there's a lot of really good starches like your oats and your grains and your whole grain breads and rices, but there's also some of those things like your snack foods, which may be higher in not only carbohydrates, but they also may have higher content of sodium and fat. So really just reading those ingredients, checking if there is fiber in them, looking to see how much added sugars are in the products, and just being mindful that just because it says it's lower in sugar or lower in fat doesn't mean always that it's the best product out there. Some other packaged products that you may see in the aisles are your soups and your broths. And so knowing that those definitely can have a great place in our diet as long as they're, again, a broth-based soup looking for lower sodium versions. Frozen meals and pasta sauces, things like that. Your frozen meals, one of the things to keep in mind is that sodium is a big factor in those. And so anything that has to be shelf stable or stable for a long time, it's going to have those preservatives. So things like Lean Cuisine's Healthy Choices, Amy's Organics, those tend to have less than 800 milligrams of sodium per meal, which is actually considered to be a low sodium product. And for pasta sauces, you're shooting for ones that have less than 480 milligrams of sodium per serving, which is going to make that a low sodium product. And so the big thing is really with any of these boxed or packaged foods is to read your ingredients and read your label as much as you can. And then finally, beverages, which are also found at the grocery store. You really want to just be mindful of your caloric beverages, trying to do more water, Crystal Lights, diet sodas, coffees, teas, things like that, trying to really limit your energy drinks, your alcohol, any of your, sodas, that type of thing. Even 100% fruit juices, you really want to be mindful that you're not eating the fruit at that point, you're just drinking it, and the calories add up as well as the sugar content add up pretty quickly. And so just trying to steer as much as you can towards those non-caloric beverages. Hopefully you got a couple of tips out of this, and if there's any questions, like I said, you can reach out to one of the local dietitians here at MUSC, as well as anyone here at the Weight Management Center would be happy to talk with you about any questions you may have. Thank you.